We've talked many times during these podcasts and during the Philharmonic concerts about the ways in which a composer can unify a piece of music, can take some very basic material and have it permeate the entire composition, whether it's a 5-minute overture or a 40-minute symphony, to really bind it together in very subtle ways. We talked about it in regards to Beethoven's Fourth Symphony, where in the introduction, starting in the second bar, he lets you know that the whole symphony is going to be based on descending thirds. We also talked about Tchaikovsky's Third Symphony, where he bound the entire 5-movement symphony together with just 4 notes, which appear in every movement in some manner of disguise or permutation. Well, Antonín Dvořák was a born symphonist. This man who came from peasant stock and was proud of it, was an amazing musical thinker. And the music is so, well, beautiful and genuine and rhapsodic that it's easy to overlook how he does this musical binding. In the case of the Eighth Symphony, which the Philharmonic is playing on its upcoming concert, the thing that binds the symphony together is chords used as part of the melody. In the first movement, the flute solo, the most famous theme of the movement, is so we start with an ascending G major chord. In the third movement, this lovely quasi-scherzo, it begins with an ascending minor chord. So from the first movement to this. And in the last movement, he builds an entire theme and variations on a theme which we first hear in the cellos. So, hearkening back to that first movement. So what about the slow movement? Well, it's true, there is no spelled out chord in any of the themes in the second movement. However, he begins the second movement with a series of phrases in the strings. Etc. Well, what if we isolate the first note of each of those 3 little phraselets? So it's like each one begins with one component of a descending minor chord. So from the first movement's ascending major chord, he does the opposite. So very subtly getting that idea of chords in there. Isn't that marvelous? One other lovely bit of musical subterfuge. In the third movement, the one that begins, etc., there's a trio section. And it's very much still in 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And the melody in the oboe is. Couldn't be more 3 if it wanted to be. 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3, 1. The cellos are supporting it with broken chords. Etc. But in the other strings, they're doing this obstreperous little counter rhythm. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And this comes back with a vengeance in the next part of the trio, where the timpani and the trumpets are going. And what he's doing is very subtly setting up the introduction to the fourth movement, which begins with this trumpet fanfare. So from this seemingly innocuous little seedling, he's planting the idea of that dotted rhythm one movement before it happens. That is a true symphonic thinker. A little bit about Dvořák the man. I just had yesterday one of my piano students asking me if Joseph Haydn was a nice guy. I said yes, and he's gone down in history as one of the half a dozen or so probably genuinely sweetest human beings who ever wrote great music. Dvořák was another one. Everybody loved the man. He was simple, he was direct. His music was one of the few things that Brahms and Tchaikovsky agreed on. They both loved Bizet's Carmen, and they both loved Dvořák's music, and Dvořák himself. They had lovely social relationships with him. And there was something so guileless about Dvořák as a teacher. He was not an academic, he was not an intellectual. He taught by sheer force of love of music. And one of my favorite stories about him is the day that he was lecturing to his class about Mozart. And he finally turned it on them. He said, "Which one of you can tell me what Mozart is?" And they kind of looked at each other. One of them said, "Well, he was the greatest exemplar of the ideals of the classical." But no. He said, "I want to know what Mozart is." Well, he provided the natural link between the classical period and the early... No, said Dvořák, "I want you to tell me what Mozart is." And a couple of other students made a couple of equally vain stabs at it. And Dvořák said, "No, don't you understand? Don't any of you get it?" And he went over to the window of the classroom and he opened it up and he pointed outside. He said, "There, Mozart is sunshine." And he believed it. That sweet, lovely man believed it. And all that love and devotion to the ideals of music and its correspondence to nature and to life itself, it's all there in his music, and it's all there in his Eighth Symphony. The remainder of this all-Slavic program is going to feature music by Alexander Glazunov, his symphonic poem Spring, not to be confused with Spring from his ballet The Seasons. This is a standalone work, very rhapsodic, very D major, very, very romantic. And then we're going to feature the United States premiere of the violin concerto by the Serbian composer Isidora Gebeljan. The piece has the intriguing subtitle, Three Curious Loves, which she very artfully sidestepped in terms of describing it very fully. I'm sad to report that Ms. Gebeljan passed away not long after composing this concerto 6 or 7 years ago. So making it one of her last pieces, she died very suddenly at the age of 53, depriving the world of a major contemporary composer. I've studied some of her other works. I hope to present one of her symphonic poems at the Philharmonic sometime in the next half dozen seasons or so. Our concertmaster, Luke Fitzpatrick, is doing an unbelievable job with this fiendishly difficult piece, and I hope that you'll all be able to come and hear Luke playing the solo part, hearing the Philharmonic lovingly backing him up for this major United States premiere.